Hey guys, welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. So let's get into it. Today we're going to take a look at the New Orleans Saints offense versus the Dallas Cowboys defense. So this is going to present a little bit different challenges than the Cleveland Browns presented week one. The reason I say that is because I actually think the New Orleans Saints have a much more competent quarterback than the Cleveland Browns. So the Dallas Cowboys won't have a quarterback who's necessarily not going to get rid of the ball, hold on to the ball, and let the defense kind of tee off on them. So you see how the Dallas Cowboys had 6 sacks week one. I don't think we'll get as many in this matchup. So you have Derek Carr. Derek Carr has had some pretty good games against the Cowboys, namely the overtime Thanksgiving game a few years ago where the Raiders, they weren't necessarily as good as the Cowboys, but they ended up finding a way to beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So that always sticks in my memory. And when I think of Derek Carr, I have to think of that game first and foremost. So the Cowboys are going to have to play a little bit differently than they played Deshaun Watson. Now, Derek Carr can get out of the pocket and make some passes to make our defense have a little bit more problems on their heels. So I do think Derek Carr is a much better quarterback at this point than Deshaun Watson is. So now we're going to get a real test for the Cowboys defense, for the Cowboys secondary. You know, when people break contain, you know, we're going to have to see a little bit more about how the Cowboys handle this. Now, one of the things we need to think about is the Saints don't have as decorated of a receiving core as the Cleveland Browns, right? You had Jerry Jeudy, you had Amari Cooper, you had Elijah Moore, right? The Saints are more so Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Cedric Wilson Jr. You might remember the name Cedric Wilson, right? He's former Cowboy, went to the Miami Dolphins, now he's with the New Orleans Saints, and Dak Prescott made him a little bit of a star in his limited wide receiver role. We know Cedric Wilson Jr. can make plays. We also know in order to match up with that, we do have Jordan Lewis. So if Cedric Wilson is playing in the slot, but the Saints will line Rashid Shaheed up in the slot. He was a burner week one against the Carolina Panthers. Now, I'm not here to say the Dallas Cowboys have the same defense as the Carolina Panthers, and all of a sudden we need to worry about the Saints putting up almost 50 points on us. But when it comes to speed, when it comes to getting deep, Rashid Shaheed is one of those players who can get on you. He can get on you fast, and then Derek Carr has the arm to get the ball to Rashid Shaheed. So the Cowboys have to be very, very conscious of letting Rashid Shaheed get into their secondary, get deep with the routes, and then letting Derek Carr be able to find him with the pass. This is not Deshaun Watson. All right? Derek Carr Jr. Derek Carr can get the ball to his wide receivers and not necessarily have as much trouble as Deshaun Watson getting the ball to the receiver. So the Cowboys are going to have, even though if you look at talent for talent, the Browns have a little more talent at the skill positions than the Saints do. And I'm not saying at every position. For example, Ford is not as talented of a running back as Alvin Kamara, right? Chris Olave is not as talented as a receiver as Amari Cooper. Shaheed is not as talented as a receiver as Jerry Jeudy. And Cedric Wilson is probably a little bit more talented than Elijah Moore, but as a collective. So you add the quarterback play, and the quarterback play means so much in the NFL that the Cowboys are going to have to make sure that they're buttoned up even more than they were before to make sure that they slow down this receiving core. Because if they don't get to Derek Carr and they don't put pressure on him and they don't put him on the ground like they did Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr is going to be able to get the ball to these receivers with accurate passes. He's not afraid to take a hit. He's not afraid to take a hit and throw the ball deep. So Cowboys have to be very conscious of that. Also, a person like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is behind Juwan Johnson on the depth chart at tight end. But as we know with the New Orleans Saints, Taysom Hill's always been kind of a do-it-all person, right? We see Taysom Hill line up in the backfield as a running back in the Wildcat type formation. We also see Taysom Hill take some snaps at quarterback and throw the ball. We see Taysom Hill line up wide out as wide receiver. We see Taysom Hill line up in line as a tight end, in the slot as a tight end. We'll see a lot of those same things from the New Orleans Saints as we go. So Taysom Hill is going to be one of those, even though he's listed, a little back on the depth chart, they will play him. They will use him. He will be one of those people that the Cowboys have to worry about. Again, similar to the tight end from the Cleveland Browns, David Njoku, how I was worried about that matchup going into the week. I'm worried about that matchup in the same way with Taysom Hill, but also a little bit differently because of the versatility of Taysom Hill. When he lines up in the backfield as quarterback, what are the Cowboys going to do? When he lines up in the slot, we're going to use Damari Overshown. We're going to use Israel Mukuamu. When he decides to split out as a wide receiver, are we going to put a corner on him? Are we going to put a safety on him? And then what kind of matchup does that present in other ways for the New Orleans Saints as far as using their traditional wide receivers and getting those matchups on other players that might not be as advantageous for the Cowboys? Also, they have Foster Moreau as tight end. Foster Moreau, he's a solid tight end. He's not awesome. Juwan Johnson, to me, presents more problems than Foster Moreau just from his size, speed, catch radius, and hands combo. Juwan Johnson makes tons of difficult catches throughout the course of the season. If you watch him over the last couple of years, he's not the guy that's going to go out for you and get 70 catches for 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. He might not necessarily be that type of every down tight end, but if you're using mismatches on third down, you're using mismatches in the red zone, Juwan Johnson can absolutely make plays. He is a playmaker. And one of the things the New Orleans Saints know how to do traditionally, whether it's Sean Payton or whether it's their new coaching staff now, they know how to put their playmakers in a position to make plays. So the Cowboys defense is going to have to be more sound this week than they were last week because of the variety of weapons and the variety of ways that the New Orleans Saints deploy these weapons. The Cowboys are also going to have to be very assignment conscious. You're not going to be able to focus in on one or two players, and if you take those guys out, you can take out the team. I feel like a team is much more dangerous when they can spread it around to 4 or 5 playmakers, and you don't necessarily get beat on who they're going to. Also, with the New Orleans Saints, they use a fullback. And the Browns, a lot of times last week, lined up with maybe a couple of tight ends, but mostly single back sets. So you didn't have to worry about a blocker coming down and throwing a block before the running back got into the hole. This week, you are going to have to worry about that. And Alvin Kamara is the type of back that can make anybody look foolish. He can single-handedly take over a game on any given week, on any given Sunday. So the Cowboys are going to have their hands full with Alvin Kamara, and they're also going to have their hands full with Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is a power back. He played for the Detroit Lions a few years ago. He had tons of rushing touchdowns. It was hard to stop that guy, especially it was him, it was Swift when it was the Detroit Lions, and they were a great 1-2 punch. The New Orleans have that on steroids because Swift is not the type of back that Alvin Kamara is. So the Cowboys are going to have to not only worry about covering Alvin Kamara in the passing game, stopping him in the crackback game, stopping him in the pin pull game, the toss game, the screen game. But then they're also going to have to come in and deal with a back like Jamal Williams who can get those tough, gritty yards, especially once New Orleans gets into the red zone. So the Cowboys are going to have their hands full with New Orleans. Actually, if you want to really know about it, I feel like this is a much tougher matchup for the Cowboys defense versus New Orleans offense because the quarterback is better, the running backs are better, the offensive line might be equal, but they do have a couple of rookies. They have a rookie in Fuaga starting at tackle there, and Fuaga played very well last week. He blocked it all up, but he's never seen a Micah Parsons in his life. As a matter of fact, he had to go against Carolina's front seven. The Cowboys' front seven should be night and day. but Fuaga played very, very, very well. So let's see if Micah Parsons could give him a welcome to the NFL moment. Now, if you're looking at how I think the Cowboys can have success against this New Orleans offense, this is the way they can have success. Once again, Fuaga, we want to put him against Micah Parsons. We want to put him against DeMarcus Lawrence. We also want to get very similar, if not better, defensive tackle play than we got last week. So, Linval Joseph, Jordan Phillips, Mozzie Smith, Osa Odighizuwa, they all played very well last week. As a matter of fact, with the PFF numbers, the Cowboys actually got more pressure on the interior. Yes, on the interior than they did on the exterior. Like when our rookie, Marshawn Nealon, lined up on the interior, he got multiple pressures on the interior offensive line of the Cleveland Browns. Micah Parsons got pressure from everywhere, and that's what we're expecting again this week. DeMarcus Lawrence got pressure from everywhere, and that's what we're expecting again this week. So we need to take advantage, maybe a little bit of lining DeMarcus Lawrence up on the outside shoulder of Fuaga, who's playing left tackle for the Saints, and then having Micah Parsons line up on the outside of that. And then, 5-man pressures are going to be huge this week. Also in the run game, I know the New Orleans Saints in the run game, I feel like they are absolutely going to attack the outside of the Cowboys. So, again, Micah Parsons, when he lines up on the outside, they tend to try to run right at him, try to attack that side and try to make him and Trayvon Diggs make tackles. And then you have Eric Kendricks out there as well. If I'm the Saints, I want to attack the Cowboys in 12 personnel, which is one running back, 2 tight ends, a receiver out there. That's what I want to do if I'm the New Orleans Saints, and I want to run right at that left side of the offense, right side of the defense. The Cowboys, what they can do to counter that is line DeMarcus Lawrence up on the same side, or line DeMarcus Lawrence up at defensive end, and then you line Micah Parsons up at defensive tackle because he's so disruptive. And then you also line up your normal, Osa Odighizuwa or Mozzie Smith, and then you line up Chauncey Goldston on the other side, and you kind of match up that way. And then you have your linebackers come in, whether it's a nickel, where you got Overshown, and you have the free agent pickup, Eric Kendricks, and then you have your safeties. But this week seems more like a Maris Liafu week to me. I think Maris should have a much bigger impact in this type of game because I feel like they'll be in nickel a lot, but they'll be trying to run out of nickel. So that's where the Cowboys will have success. If their defensive line can get penetration in the passing game, which I don't have any doubt about, but also if they can be stout in the running game, I do think this is more of a Dan Quinn type of week. You know how Dan Quinn used to line up those guys and tell them, get up the field and then play the run on the way to the pass. This is the type of offensive line where you want to do that. This is not the mauling offensive line, right? This is not the type of offensive line that will give you problems all day long by beating you with the run 40 times and getting you tired. This is the type of offensive line where the Cowboys should actually deploy their speed package and get up the field and play the run on the way to the pass. This is the Cowboys under Dan Quinn. This is when Dan Quinn would have the type of game plan that would go well against the New Orleans Saints. Also on the secondary side, so this plays well into Kalen Carson being a rookie. This is a good matchup for him. Someone like Cedric Wilson, someone like Rashid Shaheed. This is a good matchup for Trayvon Diggs. I actually think the Cowboys defense matches up really well against their receivers, even tight ends. I do not feel that you'll have as much problems with Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson. Who you're going to have problems more with is Taysom Hill, with the variability of where he lines up, with the variability of how the Saints use him. It's going to be a Where's Waldo as far as Taysom Hill as well as this game goes. So that's how I feel the Cowboys. They need to match up. They need to match speed for speed. They actually need to play more of the Dan Quinn style this week instead of the Mike Zimmer style. I actually think you don't need to really disguise much against Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. You kind of need to show them what you're going to do and just beat your man. This is not the type of week where you need to really confuse the quarterback, because I feel like the quarterback is actually good in those situations and the quarterback will make the right throws. If you get Derek Carr behind the sticks, if you get him behind the chains, so you play Alvin Kamara well, you get him into second and long, you get him into third and long, then you'll get into those types of situations where you have plays in the ball. But Derek Carr can make throws to get his teams out of those situations. So unlike last week where I thought points would be hard to come by, and hey, I was wrong. This week I think points for both teams will be much easier to come by. I feel like this will be a very high-scoring game. I think the Saints are going to keep this close. I think the Saints will be able to put up yards. I think the Saints will be able to put up touchdowns. And it's going to be on the Cowboys and Dak Prescott to match some of those things. It's going to be a very difficult game, but in a completely different way. So just kind of look out for some of those things. Look out for Alvin Kamara catching screens out of the backfield. Alvin Kamara is shifty. He's powerful, and he's got a lot of awareness. So, and some of those ways where the Cowboys were defeating the blocks on the screen game of the Cleveland Browns and getting to the running back pretty early in the screen and making some of those things difficult, I think in this situation, we're going to have people make one-on-one plays. There's going to be a lot of times where the Saints set up great screens, and they have great blocks out in space. And Alvin Kamara is free to run. And it's going to be up to a one-on-one tackle from Jordan Lewis, or a one-on-one tackle from DeMarvion Overshown, or a one-on-one tackle from Donovan Wilson. They're going to challenge our tackling in those screen and edge games. The New Orleans Saints are not going to attack the Cowboys up the middle. If they do, hey, feel free to give me shit about that. The New Orleans Saints are going to attack the Cowboys on the edges. Trust me on this. They're going to attack the Cowboys on the edges in the screen games. And if it's up the middle, it's going to be your boy Taysom Hill. It's going to be your fullback. It's going to be some of those backup running backs like Jamal Williams trying to get up the middle, on third and short, on 2nd and 3 or 4. If the New Orleans Saints are able to stay ahead of the chains, the Cowboys are going to have a long day. So that I just wanted to give you guys some insight on how their offense is going to play, what our defense needs to do. That's pretty much what I got for you. Thank you for tuning in. Leave some comments below if there's specific things that you want me to cover. You can follow me at JMillerIYL. That's J Miller if you like. That's on Twitter. You can also submit questions there. You can submit questions at an email, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, that's knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. I'll take the questions from the emails, from the comments below, from Twitter, put them together, make it like a mailbag format, make it pretty much a regular segment. Also, if there's anything specific you want me to cover, leave it in the comments below. But thank you guys for tuning in. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe so you know when I'm coming on. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're almost at 20 likes. You guys are the early ones, right? You guys are hearing the page before it blows up, and I love you for that. You know what I'm saying? Being here early, being here at the ground level, when this page blows up, you guys can say, I knew about Jay Miller, if you like, from the beginning. I was there, right there, day one. Thank you guys. We're almost at 20 subscribers. Please, we need 2 more. We need 2 more to hit 20 subscribers. So please just hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me. You make me feel good. This has been your boy, J Mill. J Mill if you like. This is Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, J Mill. Until next time, peace.